So today I'm going to talk about the UK farmers' protest and what it shows about wealth that a lot of people don't factor in. Now, before doing that, go over to infuriated.com, especially if you're an expat or a high net wealth individual, and see how I can help you, including if you are an asset rich but cash poor individual, which is what we're going to talk about on today's video. And most farmers in the UK and beyond are asset rich and cash poor. That means that actually they have a lot of assets, but they don't have a lot of cash. And the proposals from the UK government are basically the farmland will no longer be exempt from UK inheritance tax in certain situations. And they're saying it's because of billionaires now are wealthy people buying farmland. But the farmers basically argue, even if they have a £5 million farm, that might actually mean they're only making about 50,000 a year from that. And in addition to that, if they have to pay inheritance tax, often they can't pay it. They'll have to actually spend months maybe selling off a part of the farmland and so on. So a lot of the members of the public, I've noticed, even though I don't live in the UK, but just speaking to people who are from the UK and still living there, a lot of the members of the public, it's really surprised them though that basically that you could have people who have got like 5 or even 10, 15 million who can't necessarily find hundreds of thousands of pounds or dollars easily. I think when it comes to property like a primary residence, we all probably have heard about someone like an old widow living in London or New York who has a multi-million dollar or pound or euro house, and basically they don't have very much money at all in many cases, and unless they downsize, they don't have sometimes a decent life, even though on paper they are worth a lot of money. But I think farmland is another example that the public are now kind of getting used to. And people also forget private businesses are another example of this. If you've got a private business, regardless of whether it's your own enterprise or somebody else's, it's not the same as investing in the S&P 500 or a liquid stock market investment. Basically, a valuation is often pointless in certain cases because you never know for sure how much that business is worth until you sell it. I can remember a number of years ago, the British entrepreneur Alan Sugar was asked by the journalist Piers Morgan, oh, you've only got 1 or 2 billion. What about all these people on the rich list who have got 100, 200 billion and so on? And he laughed and he said, well, the way they look at that rich list is quite misleading because a lot of the people who on paper have got billions and billions, they couldn't come up with 50 million in cash within a month. And so that's one of the reasons why the financial industry defines an ultra high net wealth individual as having $30 million or above in liquid investable assets. So what does this mean for most people out there? Some people might be thinking, well, I don't have many assets in the first place, but most people do build up assets over a lifetime. Most people also do get an inheritance as well at some stage or some unexpected bonus or whatever it is. And people should be very careful about illiquid assets. Now, illiquid assets can work very well. Your primary business can be a fantastic way of generating wealth. Investing in other people's businesses can be a fantastic way of generating wealth. Property can be good as well, although it's much harder than it was before, but only if you do it in the right way with leverage and debt and you don't put much down. But there's a lot of people out there who have a lot of assets in property, land, farmland, businesses, and yet they don't actually have much liquid assets in cash, in stocks, in bonds, and so on and so forth. So what can those people do? Now, of course, they can diversify their assets. They can try to sell some of those illiquid assets, but that's not always easy. But what I think will happen when it comes to the UK farmers, this is just a prediction, it's not based on any hard evidence. I think more of them will actually take out life insurance policies, and some of the richer farms will actually borrow against their assets. Some of them are probably already doing that, but a lot of wealthy people who are asset rich and cash poor will borrow against their assets because it's tax efficient, it builds up liquidity, and then they can use that money to invest elsewhere and also pay taxes, including inheritance taxes for their beneficiaries. So I personally think that's the way this is going to go. Many small and medium-sized farms in the UK will buy a life insurance policy, so the beneficiaries will get that money and then they can pay the inheritance tax, but obviously that's an additional cost. But for much bigger farms, and indeed people who have bigger businesses, often using instruments like debt and linking it to life insurance can actually be one of the ways to generate liquidity, and we've helped our clients do that before in certain cases. So people often forget when it comes to higher net worth financial planning that whilst trusts and foundations are very good, debt and life insurance can also be very good if you use it in the right way. But even for middle class people who have got one particular asset like a farm, ultimately I think more people will look at those kind of instruments